Right now is Paul McGann's time. He deserves, finally, his own Doctor Who series. Now, I genuinely know I am not saying anything particularly groundbreaking here. I think 90% of Who fans you ask would love to see Paul McGann lead his own series. But today, if you're skeptical or just want more reasons why this would be a fantastic idea, here is why Paul McGann deserves his own spin-off Doctor Who series. First of all, he's the only one that hasn't had one. No, the War Doctor didn't get one, and no, the Fugitive Doctor didn't get one, but those are extra odd incarnations. They were never the lead of the show at a specific time, so obviously they make sense that they've never had a proper run within the show. Paul McGann has had one story, the infamous TV movie, which has its defenders, but I've got to say the TV movie is awful. It genuinely is terrible. But Paul McGann's performance, absolutely fantastic. And that's always just sat really oddly with me. There is an incarnation of the Doctor out there that just never got any chance to shine. No, there are Doctors with shorter tenures, like I'd have loved to see more of the 9th Doctor, for example. But literally only allowing the 8th Doctor to have one story is so weird. Next point, Big Finish. Now, Big Finish has sort of answered my points towards the first one. Because where Paul McGann didn't really have this big, huge TV tenure, he has become a popular Doctor through Big Finish. Now, I cannot say I have listened to tons of Big Finish, I listen to what I can. But I have to admit, Paul McGann, whenever I hear him in Big Finish, is still fantastic in the role. And first of all, that's a reason to make a Paul McGann spin-off. Because he is so popular in the role now, especially because of Big Finish, it makes sense to reward that popularity with a spin-off TV show. Plus, and this kind of links back to my first point, unfortunately Big Finish isn't that accessible to the wider audience. I understand so much goes into producing Big Finish, and with the quality of Big Finish, the price tag that they put on those, audio dramas is fair. Unfortunately, just because it's fair doesn't mean it isn't very, very steep. So I think for some Doctor Who fans who can't afford to access Big Finish, they deserve a way to access the 8th Doctor. My next point, Night of the Doctor. I know, Night of the Doctor was 9 years ago, but Paul McGann came back looking slightly older, and no one cared, and they were marvelled by a truly fantastic performance. A short that was, 7 minutes? And he made such an impression that it was one of the lasting things from the 60th, and Night of the Doctor still gets talked about for this day, and is likely the most popular short ever produced for Doctor Who. And I think that shows there is an appetite for this kind of show. So that section was kind of like why there's an appetite for it. Now let's talk about why it makes sense now. First of all, the Disney Plus deal. We know that lots of money is being put into the show going forward, they're upping the budget, and we know both Disney and Russel T Davies wants to make spin-offs and expand the Doctor Who universe. My god, it's such an exciting time to be a Doctor Who fan, the show is going to become massive, and the 8th Doctor should be a part of that. And that's one of the important things I'm trying to say is, now the show has the capability to produce these types of shows, why not make an 8-episode mini run for Paul McGann? Give him a series. Because Paul McGann, you can not only explore stuff before the Time War, but you can explore stuff within the Time War, especially within this bigger budget. Since Russel T Davies created the Time War, it's always been expanded on, and I feel like you can explore Paul McGann in that setting or out of that setting. You could definitely use the Time War stuff within the bigger budget and have the 8th Doctor really feel like he fits within the Time War era of the show and use that character to explore him. What I'm trying to say is I wish the show itself wouldn't look back, say I don't really want Ncuti himself to be exploring the Time War, instead use the 8th Doctor within a spin-off show to explore the ideas of the Time War that are still really interesting and have never really truly been explored in the main show. Plus, a Doctor Who spin-off show with Paul McGann would make a lot of sense in terms of bridging the gap. What I mean is, back in RTD's original run, he could produce 13 episodes within a year, because that's how TV was made back then. These days, you're lucky if you get another season of the show less than 2 years from the previous one. I understand budgets go up, you know, casts get busier, like more like special effects sequences and things like that, but I want to see Doctor Who and Doctor Who projects get produced more consistently. And obviously other spin-offs can and hopefully will fill some of those gaps to keep Whovians' appetites secure. I'm a waffler. But with a show like this, you kind of bridge the gap with Doctor Who itself. You know, it can kind of be titled Doctor Who, the 8th Doctor Adventures or something. It is the spin-off that would feel most like Doctor Who, and therefore as a most satisfying gap filler. Especially as Paul McGann is the Doctor that makes the most sense in terms of bringing someone back to fill the Doctor Who void as a spin-off the best. I really hope this is making sense. What I'm trying to say is that I kind of want my spin-offs to kind of like feel as Doctor Who-y as possible, and I feel like the best way to make a Doctor Who spin-off feel Doctor Who-y is by having a Doctor in a Doctor Who spin-off. Paul McGann makes the most sense, as I've explained, and that's overall why Paul McGann and Russel T Davies and BBC and Disney come make a Docky Woo Paul McGann spin-off, because it would be brilliant. And Russell, if you're too busy, I'll join the writer's room. I'll write you an 8-episode, 8th Doctor thriller from start to finish, and it will be Series 4 level of good. I promise you that. What I can do is, if there are other spin-off projects that you guys are really passionate about and that you want me to talk about, leave them in the comments below and I'll make a video on why they should or shouldn't happen. We can make a cool little series out of this if you'd like, or if this gets no views, we won't. But it will get views, because 8th Doctor quality. This was a video I made where I talked about a load of really cool spin-offs that I think should happen. So why don't you click it? Honestly. Because it's a great video, and I think you'll love it, because you want to hear about all of those Doctor Who spin-offs.